All right. Hey, I'm Jesse Reynolds, founder of JBR Wealth Strategies. I'm excited that you are checking out this Legacy Wealth Hack presentation. So let's go ahead and hop right into it. I'm going to start off by asking you guys just a few questions about wanting to leave a legacy. Do you want to leave a legacy, right? In Proverbs, it tells us that a righteous man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. Do you want your kids and grandkids to have better financial opportunities than you've had? Would you like to see your money grow tax-free while being able to maintain control and access to it? Do you want to protect your money from risky banks and market conditions? Would you like to know what many of the ultra wealthy do to protect and grow their wealth through the generations? So, I'm going to share with you guys a strategy that I knew about for many years and finally got serious about several years ago. And it all started with checking out a couple of resources. So you'll see there on the left, Becoming Your Own Banker. That's many people refer to this as kind of the infinite banking Bible. It is not the Bible, but it is really one of the best resources for just outlining and showing how to use this strategy. It's called The Infinite Banking Concept by many, or the Private Family Banking. And then really the book that made it all come together and made me see how simple this was to implement for my family was this book here called What Would Rockefellers Do? Now, if you go look for it on Amazon, it's going to be called What Would Billionaires Do? Same book, same author. They just changed the cover and the title with it. But it shares how the Rockefeller family and many other ultra wealthy families have been using this for multiple generations to continue to grow their money and pass their money tax free from generation to generation while maintaining control and access to it. And the infinite banking concept, essentially, it's just utilizing a properly structured, high cash value, whole life insurance policy with a mutual life insurance company. And we'll get into that more. But let's first talk about what are some of the main ways that a lot of people store wealth. And I realize there's crypto and certain things like that in real estate, and either require higher skill levels and or greater risk exposure. Listen, I have crypto. I think it's fantastic. That may or may not be your thing. But three main places where most people put their money is first in the bank. Now, the bank is certainly convenient. You can have your debit card, you take it around, you swipe it places. That's fantastic. But most people don't realize and understand about the risks associated with banks. And there's a lot of them. We'll get into more in a minute. But essentially, you don't, if there's nothing else you get from this, is when you deposit money at a bank, you no longer own that money and have any say what happens with it. And I realize that might be a provocative statement for you, but it's absolutely true. So then there's the market. The market can be great. I'm not going to be negative on the market. If you put money in the market and leave it there for a long period of time, you can absolutely see that grow, and that's fantastic. But it is very volatile. And so again, if you need access to a certain amount of money at a certain specific time in the future, you can't accurately predict that because there are no guarantees for growth in the market. There is exposure to losses. Oftentimes there's management fees with money guys and all sorts of things involved. If you're using any sort of market vehicle like a 401k or an IRA, there can be other red tapes and penalties and taxes and things that come into play just for wanting to use and access your money. And then this other play where many of the ultra wealthy have built and stored wealth, and I'm talking about millions and millions, in some families, billions of dollars, is with high cash value mutual life insurance products. So let's talk about banks. Again, I'm not going to get super political here, but you need to understand that there are so many examples out there of the government and or political parties and affiliations restricting access for people to their funds. That was the truckers convoy a couple of years ago up in Canada there. This is the January 6th riots. And again, you might think Orange Man bad. I get that. Okay. But you have to understand that if they did it for one side, they can just as quickly do it for another side of a political affiliation, right? And it's not just banks like you go down to Main Street and you deposit with Regions or Bank of America. It's all sorts of different financial institutions have got examples of this. And another thing when it comes to risk with banks, most people will go and they deposit the money at the bank and they feel great because they see that little FDIC sticker. Well, you have to understand everything about banking is about fractional reserve lending. That's why there were some bank failures earlier this year at the time of this recording. So here's something wild that most people don't realize. This is as of March 31st, 2021. The FDIC only had 1.25% of the deposits that they were actually responsible for. That means for every $100 that they were responsible for insuring and protecting, they only actually had $1.25. So if there is some sort of bank run or multiple bank failures going on, they may not have the ability to protect and insure those funds. And again, I mentioned this, but again, this is straight from the Google. If you want to go check this out, but when you open a bank account and you deposit cash, you surrender the legal title to the cash and it becomes an asset of the bank. It's really important to understand. So that's some of the issues going on with banks. So the dilemma that most people have when it comes to creating legacy wealth, passing wealth from generation to generation, is do I spend it or leave it? Or do I spend it and enjoy my retirement in those later years? Or do I leave something to bless my kids and grandkids, right? And that's what most people are faced with. And if we look at there's all sorts of headlines out there. Most Americans don't expect to leave an inheritance. I found this one really interesting because this isn't 16% of Americans. This is 16% of millionaires only inherited $100,000 or more. Most millionaires are first generation millionaires, and most millionaires have lost all that wealth within 2 generations. Okay, the average inheritance is only $46,000. You get what a blessing, absolutely. But you have to understand too that includes millionaires, right? So those numbers are really skewed. If you look at the median inheritance, is actually much, much lower than that, and the numbers are continuing to decline and dwindle across the country. So let's say here, this is you and your hypothetical family, and let's say you had 4 kids, and you've got $700,000, and you have decided I want to leave a legacy. So that's a fantastic thing, and get kudos to you for having 700 grand. That's a blessing right there. You're already way out ahead of where the average American is. So you have 4 kids, and you want to just leave it to them evenly. So for each of those 4 kids, it's divided 4 ways, about 175,000. But after taxes, they're only going to walk away with about 125,000. Again, that's almost 3 times the national average. So you have done great. In no way do I want to diminish what you have accomplished there. That is fantastic. That's a blessing. That's going to help them buy a home or take some nice trips or pay for college, all those different things. That's great. But would you agree, for one, having done the hard work of having $700,000 to leave, them only getting 125,000 each, that's not as much as that could be. So what I'm going to show you here is another play that this is accessible to just about everybody out there, but the masses just don't know about it and understand it. And so what we're going to look at here is this is a real life illustration for a healthy 34-year-old female. And I'm going to break down the numbers specifically. And this is from a carrier. In fact, my family, we personally have 5 of these infinite banking policies in our family with this carrier. So it's one of my preferred carriers. I like to help families get this set up with. Okay, but you might not be a 34-year-old healthy female. I get that. So some of these numbers, they might just take a little longer to do what I'm going to explain here in a minute. But for most folks, these concepts still work with some rare exceptions. So let's look on the left-hand side first. What if you took that $700,000 and you said, you know what, over the next 7 years, I'm going to pay a $100,000 premium into a properly structured, high cash value whole life insurance company with a mutual life insurance, or whole life insurance policy with a mutual life insurance company. And again, I realize you might say, well, I don't have 700 grand. These numbers would skew down percentage wise to whatever you could start putting into this. But I'm just showing an apples to apples comparison with the family we just looked at a minute ago with 700 grand. Okay. So, and why 7 years? That has to do with what's called the modified endowment contract. Essentially, it's going to give you the ability for all of this wealth to be accessed and transferred without tax consequences. Okay. That's why that's so important. So we split up that 700,000 into 7 individual $100,000 premiums. Okay. So what you need to understand is cash value. So an important part is when you structure these right, is you have access to your cash value immediately. So you'll see in year 1, $100,000 premium, you have access to $79,841, almost 80%, right, of what you put into it. And you'll notice that death benefit starts out now at over $4 million. Now, it's highly unlikely that a healthy 34-year-old female is going to pass away in the next 12 months, right? That's highly unlikely, but we get that. But if God forbid she did, one, she only put 100,000 in and had a $4.1 million death benefit payout. Plus she still has the other 600,000 that she didn't pay into the policy yet. Would you agree that in that highly unlikely horribly tragic situation, they just significantly increased what that generational wealth transfer looks like for the family, right? But so what we're going to focus on now is this year 7. So let's say things go on smoothly. 7 years later, you just start moving that money into the whole life policy. You own and control that. You'll see now after 7 years, the cash value is $707,000. So you have more cash value than what you put into the policy. And if you look over on that left side with year 8, you're going to see that you'll never pay a premium ever again. So all you did was pay 7 $100,000 premiums and never pay a premium again. Well, now what you'll notice is that death benefit after year 7, this is technical, it does what's called reduced paid up, okay? All that means is they look at the $700,000 cash value, they say how much interest and dividends can this earn to continue to self-fund the policy. And you'll see that it's still going to have an over $2.5 million death benefit. That you could just put the 700 grand in, pull the 700,000 out 7 years later through policy loans, which we'll explain more. You can withdraw it too, but policy loans would probably make more sense, especially as you learn about the infinite banking concept. And now you're going to see that wealth transfer, if God forbid something happened there at year 8, well, now $2.5 million would be a tax-free payout. So instead of each kid getting getting a $125,000 after-tax payout, now they're each getting over $600,000. So 5 times higher, right? Huge win just on that. But one thing to understand about properly structured cash value whole life insurance policies is the longer they're in force, the better they work. And again, remember, maybe you're in your 50s and you're not super healthy, but in average health. So maybe instead of 7 years to get whole on the cash value, maybe it takes you 9 years. It might take 1 or 2 or 3 years longer, but this concept's still going to work. So now let's fast forward and let's say this average life expectancy of say 85 years old. You'll see all these years never paying a premium again. But watch what continues to happen with that cash value. Year after year after year, it's continuing to grow like that, and the death benefit is continuing to grow like that. So remember the dilemma of do I spend it or do I leave it? Do both here. You can access the cash value. You can use it to live a nice retirement, go on vacations, do the things you want to with your grandkids, and still have potentially, in this scenario, several $1 million left over that wind up paying out tax-free to your loved ones, to your kids, your grandkids, et cetera, like that. So now again, if you only had 70,000 to pay in over 10 years or 7 years, then it would just be 10% of these numbers, but the concept would still work. Don't get hung up on, well, I don't have 700 grand. Get hung up on, what could I do to be protecting and growing my money more efficiently and creating a greater legacy opportunity for my children and grandchildren today? That's the idea of this. So let me ask you this. What is it that banks know that the average person doesn't? Did you know there's something called bank-owned life insurance? So you'll see that this is as of December 31st, 2021, the top 9 banks with their life insurance policy assets they own. Bank of America, over $24 billion of life insurance they own. Wells Fargo, almost $20 billion of life insurance. So one thing they do is they take out cash value whole life insurance policies on every what's called key employee. It's called key person's life insurance. And so, they might work there for 5 or 10 years and then go on to something else. And the bank continues to own and control those life insurance policies. And, one day, Lord willing, many, many years from now, when that employee passes away, all that tax-free money pays back into the bank. Isn't that an amazing concept? See, banks are incredibly smart. Again, they might do some questionable things, but they're very smart when it comes to making money, right? You deposit with fractional reserve lending, you deposit $100 and they lend out 1,000. It's wild what they do. So why is it they love this high cash value life insurance? Because it works and it has great features. Other benefits of life insurance. Did you realize that mutual life insurance companies, they did phenomenally well during the Great Depression? During the Great Depression, 40% of banks failed. 90% of the stock market crashed. In fact, I think it took like 28 years for the stock market to recover. But people who had their money in dividend-paying mutual life insurance companies, they didn't lose a penny. In fact, many of those companies literally paid dividends. That means they returned profits every single year through the Great Depression. Did you know that if you take a loan against your cash value, you don't even have to pay it back? Now, as you study the infinite banking concept, if you go into more details with those books I shared previously, or I also have a video called Inside Infinite Banking if you want to learn more about how to utilize that concept. Many times it's going to make sense to pay the loan back, but you don't have to. There's no legal requirement to do that. Isn't that amazing? Did you also know that your cash value in a life insurance policy is protected from creditors, and in many states is also protected from litigation too? It's got so many unique features, and that's one of the reasons why the ultra wealthy love it. So if this is interesting and you want to know more, first thing to understand, this play is available to everyone. In our family, we're not multi-billionaires, but that was one of my hangups. I thought you had to be like ultra wealthy to start this. And once we finally got those couple of unanswered questions from that what would the Rockefellers do book, everything came together for us. This is super important to understand though. If you are interested in this and you know someone who's a life insurance agent, no disrespect towards them, but the vast majority of life insurance agents have no idea how to do this. They just haven't been trained. They don't practice it. Now, if you ask them, hey, can you do this for me? Most will say, yes, I can, but they can't. Remember how we showed how you structure it for just 7 years of $100,000 premium, it goes to zero. You never pay a penny again, but the cash value and death benefit continue to grow tax-free the rest of your life. That takes knowledge and specialized skills that most life insurance agents don't have. My family, we were practitioners of this first. I told you we have 5 policies in our family, and Lord willing, we're going to fund more. I remember before I actually became an agent, I had a local friend here who I was trying to explain this concept to. He'd been a life insurance agent for like 6 years. He had no idea how to do this. Okay, this is really important to understand that you need to work with an agent who not only specializes in this, but also practices it for their own family. And again, remember we shared the sooner that this is enforced, the better it's going to work for your family. Remember that death benefit payout by age 85, because they started it in the 30s and then just self-funded it and never put another premium in ever again. And so if you found this interesting, you probably have questions. That's very normal, and you want to learn more. This video is probably either shared with you by another wealth strategist on our team we're working with, or it was shared with you by one of our satisfied clients who just are really excited to share this with you. So be sure to reach out to us or have them get you in touch with one of us on the team so you can schedule a free wealth strategy session and find out how you can get this in place for your family right away. We look forward to meeting with you.